As I stood before the flickering candles of my birthday cake, the warmth of the room enveloped me like a lover's embrace. Mark's eyes twinkled with a secret, his smile broad and mysterious, making my heart flutter with anticipation. Our home, festooned with balloons and streamers, was the stage for what was supposed to be an intimate celebration. But as I inhaled to make my wish, a sudden knock at the door shattered the moment's tranquility. Mark's expression shifted from joy to confusion, and as he opened the door, the night took an unexpected turn. There, in the doorway, stood a figure from our past, their presence like a storm cloud ready to unleash chaos. What could possibly go wrong on a night meant for just us? My name is Julie, and I'm 34 years old. I've been married to my husband, Mark, for 7 years now. Our life together has been a tapestry of the mundane and the magical, but today was different. It was my birthday. Mark and I had planned a quiet evening, just the two of us, to celebrate. The house was adorned with streamers and balloons, each one a vibrant splash of color against our usual decor. A small, intimate dinner was set up in our dining room, the table a canvas for our shared moments. At its center sat a single, elegant birthday cake, its candles flickering like tiny beacons of hope and excitement. As I stood there, ready to make my wish, I couldn't help but feel a thrill of anticipation. The warmth of the candles, the soft glow they cast on Mark's face. It all felt like the prelude to something extraordinary. But as I inhaled to blow out the candles, a sudden, unexpected knock at the door shattered the tranquility of the moment. I paused, the breath caught in my throat, as Mark, with a puzzled look, went to answer it. The door swung open, and there stood a figure from our past, someone we hadn't seen in years. The air seemed to thicken with tension as this unexpected guest stepped into our home, their presence like a storm cloud over our celebration. The night, which was meant for just us, was about to take a turn into the unknown. And as I watched this scene unfold, I couldn't help but wonder, what could possibly go wrong on a night meant for just us? As Mark returned from the door, his face was a mix of confusion and excitement. He stood beside me, his hand gently on my back, as I leaned forward to make my wish. The moment I blew out the candles, the room erupted in cheers. But it wasn't just Mark's voice. There were others. 11 of Mark's friends, including his best friend Tom and his cousin Dave, suddenly appeared from the shadows, clapping and laughing. Mark, with a mischievous grin, announced, "Surprise, Julie, this is your birthday gift. You can do whatever you want with them." The initial shock gave way to a rush of adrenaline. Here was an unexpected twist to our quiet evening, turning it into something wild and unpredictable. I looked around at the faces, some familiar, some less so, but all eager to make my birthday memorable. My mind raced with possibilities. What would I choose to do with this unexpected gift? The air was charged with a playful energy, and I could feel the eyes of everyone on me, waiting for my decision. I decided to embrace the spontaneity of the moment. "Let's play a game," I suggested, my voice carrying a hint of mischief. "A game where everyone has to reveal something they've never told anyone before." The room buzzed with nervous laughter and murmurs of agreement. We gathered around the living room, the candles now extinguished, but the atmosphere alight with anticipation. One by one, secrets were shared, some humorous, others deeply personal. Tom admitted to a secret crush on a mutual friend, which sparked a playful uproar. Dave confessed to once stealing a neighbor's garden gnome as a teenager, which had us all in stitches. I was taken aback by the surprise but intrigued by the freedom Mark had just given me. I approached Tom, who was standing closest to me, his eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and nervousness. Running my finger down his shirt, I whispered, "Are you ready for anything?" Tom nodded, a slight blush creeping up his neck. I leaned in, kissing him softly on the neck, feeling the room's atmosphere shift. Then, turning to the others, I invited them to touch me. to explore this new boundary Mark had inadvertently set. The room filled with a tense energy as the men complied, their hands tentatively touching my shoulders, my arms, my back. Mark, initially, amused, watched with growing unease. His smile faded as he realized the implications of his gift. He shouted, "Enough! This was a mistake!" But his voice was drowned out by the excitement and the music that had started playing. I could feel the heat from their bodies, the slight tremble in their touch, as if they were all holding their breath, waiting for something to give. Mark's voice cut through the noise again, more desperate this time. "Julie, stop this now." But the moment had taken on a life of its own, fueled by the thrill of the forbidden, the allure of the unknown. The music, a pulsing beat that seemed to echo the racing of my heart, drowned out Mark's protests. I felt a hand on my waist, another, brushing my hair back, and the room spun with a dizzying mix of sensations. Mark pushed through the crowd, his face a mask of confusion and anger, trying to reach me. But the others, caught up in the game, didn't notice or didn't care. They were all part of this now, this wild, unexpected dance. I turned to face Mark, my eyes locking with his, a silent question hanging between us. What had he really intended with this gift? Did he truly understand what he had unleashed? As Mark finally reached me, his hands gripping my shoulders, pulling me away from the others, I could see the storm in his eyes. "This isn't what I meant," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. The Mark's attempt to regain control was met with resistance. I, feeling empowered by the moment, commanded two of his friends, Dave and another named Mike, to hold him back. They hesitated but complied, gripping Mark's arms tightly. The room was now a scene of controlled chaos, with Mark struggling against the hold, his face a mask of betrayal and confusion. I moved through the group, engaging with each man, their touches becoming more daring under my encouragement. The air was thick with tension and the scent of cologne and perfume. Mark's protests grew louder, but they were like background noise to the unfolding drama. I could see the conflict in their eyes, the battle between loyalty to Mark and the allure of the forbidden. My heart raced as I whispered encouragements, feeling the power of the moment. Each touch was like a spark, igniting a fire that seemed to consume the room. Mark's voice, now hoarse from shouting, barely reached me over the music. "Julie, this is too much. Please stop." But the night had taken on a life of its own, and I was its conductor. As I leaned into Mike, his breath caught, his hands trembling on my waist. The room spun around us, the boundaries of our usual life, blurring into something wild and untamed. I could feel the weight of Mark's gaze, heavy with regret and confusion. The music pulsed, a heartbeat that matched my own, as I turned to face Mark, our eyes locking. The question in his eyes was palpable. What had he unleashed? What would be the ultimate consequence of this night? The room was a whirl of shadows and light, the men around me a blur of excitement and fear. I knew we were crossing lines that could never be uncrossed, but in that moment, the thrill was intoxicating. Mark's struggle against Dave and Mike intensified, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. "This isn't what I meant," he pleaded, but his words were lost in the cacophony of the moment. I felt the heat from their bodies, the slight tremble in their touch, as if they were all holding their breath, waiting for something to give. The room was a whirlwind of emotions, each touch from Mark's friends sending shivers down my spine. I could feel the tension, the thrill of the forbidden, as I moved from one to another, their hands exploring, their eyes filled with a mix of desire and guilt. Mark, restrained by Dave and Mike, watched with eyes that burned with betrayal. His voice, hoarse from shouting, finally broke through the noise. "Julie, I can't live with you after this." His words hit me like a cold wave, sobering me instantly. The room, once alive with the pulse of music and the heat of bodies, now felt like a scene from a play gone wrong. The men around me paused, their hands withdrawing as if burned by the sudden shift in atmosphere. The music seemed to fade, leaving only the echo of Mark's declaration hanging in the air. I turned to face him, my heart pounding not with excitement now, but with a sinking realization of what I had done. His eyes, filled with hurt and disbelief, followed me around the room, each glance a reminder of the trust we had shattered. The betrayal was palpable, the air heavy with the weight of broken trust. As the night wore on, the initial excitement gave way to a sobering realization of what had transpired. Mark's voice, now hoarse from shouting, finally broke through the noise. "Julie, I can't live with you after this." His words cut through the haze of the evening, sobering everyone in the room. The men, once eager participants in this twisted game, now looked around with uncertainty, their earlier bravado replaced by a palpable sense of regret. I could see the conflict in their eyes, the battle between loyalty to Mark and the allure of the forbidden. I approached Mark, the distance between us now more than just physical. "Mark," I whispered, my voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But the damage was done, the line crossed. His gaze was like ice, his face a mask of pain and anger. The room was silent, the only sound the soft rustle of clothing as the men shifted uncomfortably. I could feel the weight of their. The morning after was silent, the house now empty except for the remnants of the previous night's chaos. Mark was gone, his side of the bed cold. I sat at the kitchen table, the reality of my actions sinking in. The thrill had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow feeling of loss and regret. I knew I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. In the days that followed, Mark moved out, and we began the painful process of separation. The friends involved were never the same around us. The group dynamics shattered. I was left to ponder the cost of that night's freedom, the price of a birthday wish gone awry. I found myself replaying the events over and over in my mind, each memory a sharp reminder of the trust I had broken. Mark's words, "I can't live with you after this," echoed in my thoughts, a haunting refrain that underscored the gravity of my actions. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now felt like a mausoleum of our past life together. I started to see the world differently. Every interaction with friends, every social gathering was tinged with awkwardness and unspoken judgments. The men who had been part of that night avoided eye contact, their guilt palpable. Our mutual friends tried to maintain neutrality, but the air was thick with the unspoken question, how could I have let it go so far? As I navigated through this new reality, I began to understand the depth of my mistake. It wasn't just about the physical boundaries I had pushed. It was about the emotional devastation I had caused. Mark's absence was a constant reminder of the trust I had shattered, not just in our marriage, but in our circle of friends. What would Julie learn from this experience, and how would she move forward? I realized that my journey was one of self-discovery and redemption. I had to confront the parts of myself that sought thrill over stability, that chose momentary excitement over lasting love. The lessons were harsh, teaching me about the fragility of trust and the consequences of seeking validation in the wrong places. I knew I had to rebuild, not just my life, but my understanding of relationships. It started with acknowledging my actions, not just to Mark. But don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.